Hey everyone, welcome to Leftovers with Kim Petrie. This podcast is designed to talk about everyday topics through authentic conversations. Listen, if you are new with us, please make sure you subscribe. Now, without further ado, here's your host, Kim Petrie.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in today. I have two very fun special guests with me today. I'm going to introduce them to you. I have Pastor Kasaud, who is our children's pastor here at CityGate Church.
Up? How you guys doing?
There we go. I can hear the applause right now from your car, from your home. Thank you. And then I also have Pastor Steve. He is our youth and young adults pastor, and we're super excited to have him here.
Hello. It's good to be here.
We are going to have so much fun today, everybody. You need some joy in your life right now, and we're going to bring you some joy. And then we're going to be talking about how to help out some parents today. So if you're a parent, you know a parent, you're getting ready to be a parent, you're a grandparent that is still being a parent, this one is for you. Back to school season. So we're going to talk about this interesting back to school season and just different things that we're having to consider this year, like no other year, and how we can maybe help you guys today. So thank you so much for spending some time with us. So we're talking about back to school. I need to hear, Kasaud, Steve, do either one of you have any fun, interesting back to school stories? Maybe when you're a kid, your kids?
I'll go first because I know he's going to set the bar super high.
Okay, go Kasaud.
No, man. So I was in school and I was in actually Bible class. It was hilarious.
How old were you first?
I was in high school. I was
high school.
A sophomore in high school.
This is going to be a good one if you're in high school.
So all of my friends, we had this thing where they like to give the teacher a hard time. And so they always called me teacher's pet. And I wasn't teacher's pet, whatever. But so I'm standing up at the whiteboard.
Teacher's pet. I can totally see it.
I can see it. I see it right now.
Teacher's
Just looking
pet.
at him right now.
Look at him.
Truth.
Mm-hmm.
Got that look on his face.
I was standing up there at the whiteboard with her. And then I was trying to talk to her, and then they start throwing like markers and stuff at us. And I'm like, what is happening? And she's completely oblivious to it. She's like 70, 80 years old, so she's like not seeing anything. And all of a sudden, if you don't know what's going on, you just see me like jumping and moving really quickly. And I'm like grabbing these markers right before they hit her. And I'm like, no.
You saved your teacher's life.
And they're like laughing. And I'm like, yo, stop. You go, stop. I'm not trying to keep it together. And so my buddy Paul threw the last one. And it was getting ready to hit her in the stomach, and I went just like this.
And this teacher has no idea these markers are flying at her stomach?
She's completely oblivious that this is happening. And I'm like, what is happening right now? He falls out of the chair laughing. The entire class, they're like, what is happening? And she's like, all right, y'all, time to settle down. And I'm like, this did not just happen.
You were like a superhero.
That's what I'm picturing. Like, you're getting all these markers.
Didn't feel like a superhero. I was like, we're gonna get suspended. This is it. I'm getting expelled.
Are you a rule follower?
I am a rule follower if they're
right.
written down. Yes.
Got it.
If they're written down. Did you hear that qualifying remark?
I did hear that. If they're written down.
I said if they're written down. Only if they're written down. If they're not, I'm doing
What
it.
if it's on paper? It's law.
Thou shalt not throw a marker at the teacher. You were good.
It wasn't written down, but it didn't seem like a good idea to hit a teacher with a marker at the moment.
That's
so,
awesome. Hey, all the teachers out there are appreciating your love right now.
The only thing I can think of is how bad the aim of all your classmates are that they could not hit
one target.
an 80-year-old woman who probably wasn't moving very fast in the front of your classroom.
She was standing like a statue.
Like
Wow.
That's what it was.
That's it.
All right. Well, okay.
This
Steve,
is going to be funny.
You have anything to top that one?
In first grade.
First grade.
I don't know
This is
if I'm
going to be
allowed
great.
to share this story or
Yes.
not. But in my elementary classroom, we had like a little library in the back of the room, where you could go in, pick a book for free reading. And there was one of those times my stomach was just messing with me. Didn't know what was going on.
Oh.
Felt just a rumbly in my tumbly. I was had no clue what was happening. And then all of a sudden, I had to release something.
Oh, no.
And it came out in a different state of matter than I was expecting. I'm trying not to be as as clear and without being graphic. So
But it wasn't clear.
I went to my teacher.
I'm guessing.
It was very unclear.
It was very unclear.
It was very unclear.
Murky.
And I had no clue what was going on. So, I knew what had happened after the fact. So I went to my teacher. So first grade, my teacher's name was Miss Hingsbergen.
Oh, that
which is great for a
Hingsbergen.
6-year-old to try to pronounce.
Yes.
Oh, Miss Hingsbergen, I gotta go. Can I go to the bathroom? So I went down to the bathroom, and as I'm in there, seeing
what happened?
the aftermath of everything that had taken place, all of a sudden 6th grade boys came into the bathroom.
Oh no.
That's what I thought. I thought this is how I die. This is the end of the Steve Blower
You're
story.
looking for a window to crawl out of.
Yeah, there was no windows. They were like glass block basement windows. There was no escaping.
Not good.
So they come in. I step out. I'm like, hey, can you guys go get Miss Hingsbergen? I'm just a mess. And she came down. Everybody, they were super helpful. They're like tossing me like wet paper towels over the stall
good
door.
Boys.
They were great. And then she came in, and I waddled out of the stall. And it was.
This is really like stuck in your memory too.
It is very much so. I remember how I felt that day.
Wow.
I remember her handing my undergarments wrapped in toilet paper and paper towels to my sister, who picked me up from school because she was much older than I am, and that was the day. So I remember that was horrible, and I'm not, I'm
not scarred
I'm
at all?
delivered. I'm delivered.
Yes. Wow.
But it's still there.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
But
Yeah.
God showed me some 6th grade angels that day.
Hey, that is huge because 6th grade boys are not usually as kind and loving.
They're not. They were.
That was awesome.
What was a lesson you learned from that?
You can never trust a fizzle. That's what I learned.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Maybe that'll get edited out. I apologize.
but you know what? They say we need more male listeners to the podcast. So, guys, whatever we got to do for it, we're here for you, men. All right, let's continue on.
Pastor Kim, do you have a funny kid story?
Do I have
from
a funny
school?
story? So, I taught 1st grade for a long time. And my, the fun things that they like to tell you about their family. 1st graders, they will just tell you everything you need to know. And there was a 1st grader one time we were talking and about their weekend, and this 1st grader started going into a story about how, some things that their parents were doing over the weekend that I don't think was appropriate for them to see or know.
Oh boy.
And then the other students started asking questions, and I said, okay, guys, enough about your weekend. And I'm like, do I tell the parents what has happened, or we just pretend like this never happened? Those are my funniest stories. Are just listen. If you just listen, you learn everything you need to know from a 1st grader.
Oh, yes.
About their family. So any people that have 1st graders out there, transparency is key with them.
We always tell our kids, you don't have to tell everything you know.
No.
That's what we are very mindful of that.
Absolutely not. Oh, wow. Well, that's fun. All right. So, hey, if you guys have any fun back to school stories, we'd love to hear them. Share them with us. This year, thinking of back to school, I always loved like getting my school supplies. I was one of those weird people that loved, everything had to match. You guys are probably not feeling me, but all the ladies out there, I was ready. I wanted fresh pencils, sharpened, everything cool. And I was talking to Sage. So I have a 13-year-old and then an almost 2-year-old. So that calls for a fun time shopping for pencils. And so I'm asking her, hey, we're getting ready for, back to school. How you feeling? Trying to pretend, honestly, as a mom, that we're having the same feelings that we had last year going back to school. And she looked at me and she goes, I just hear they want us to wear goggles, and I am not acting. Yes. She's like, yes. I am not going to show up to school looking like I came from under the sea. And we laughed so hard last night. We sat in the car and we just laughed because I am trying to picture us now, because word on the street is that masks are not enough, that we may need goggles or eyewear or face shields and a mask. And last night, we were talking in the car, and we just laughed uncontrollably for 10 minutes because we just realized this is really where we are right now.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of talking about pencils, paper, all this stuff, we're talking about
what color goggles you want to wear.
What kind of goggles? Do you want a tie-dyed face mask to look cool? What do you want? And we just sat and laughed. And I was like, you know what, God, thank you for the moment to get to laugh. And so I do want to encourage you parents, man, this is an interesting time we're going through. But it is okay to laugh at it because it is quite ridiculous. And we're not agreeing, disagreeing. We're not having debates over masks or anything. But it's funny.
Yeah.
Yep,
when you stop and think about it.
We are probably about 3 weeks from overalls, and we're going to look like minions walking
waiting
around.
for the
That's
hazmat
exactly what's going to
suits.
happen.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Somebody said, well, why don't we just, celebrate Halloween every day and put on a different mask and costume and try to make it fun for our kids, right? And I feel for you teachers, all the teachers out there, I feel for you, just trying to gear up and get excited about the unknown and all the things that we're facing. But I think the most concerning thing, and this is what I wanted Kasaud and Steve to join me and talk about and help parents out right now, is, as teenagers especially, but even children, there's never been, even the past 2 years, being pastors and just praying for people and families, it seems weekly that a parent would bring a child and say, please pray for them, they're going through anxiety. Please pray for them, they're going through depression. And anxiety was already at an all-time high with our students and our children, which we want to tap into one of the realities of what increases anxiety in children and teens and in all of us being social media. So I want to hit that first, but then I want to talk about the ramped up anxiousness and all that this season is producing. But first I want to tackle, because I think as parents, all of us want our children to be successful.
Absolutely.
We want our children to thrive.
Definitely.
But sometimes it can be those small things, just like in our own lives, that we're overlooking that are affecting our kids in a heavy, strong way. Pastor Steve, share with us what you've seen, the effects social media, internet have had on students when it comes to anxiety and depression and self-image.
Well, what we've done is, and I don't believe that social media is inherently evil.
Right.
I don't think it's evil at all. I think it can be used for good. We've seen amazing things happen with social media. However, if it's not used correctly, there is a very dark side of it.
Absolutely.
And it's very real. We can try to dismiss it as much as we want to, but the reality of students that are age 11 to 18, 20,
Yes.
30, even, above that,
Yeah.
we are constantly looking at other people. And I've heard it said 100 million times from leadership people, preachers, teachers, that we have a danger of comparing our blooper reel with somebody else's highlight reel.
Absolutely.
And we feel like we don't measure up. So when we don't measure up, then all of a sudden that anxiety feels like there's a pressure to perform.
Not enough.
I'm not enough.
I
I'm
gotta
not
be
good
better.
enough. I don't look good enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not big enough. I'm not tall enough.
I don't throw the best parties.
I'm not pretty enough.
Yep.
I'm not
Right.
invited to the best parties.
Right. I don't have enough friends.
Even then, well, I didn't know about this get together, so that means these people didn't like me.
True.
That happens with adults.
Oh, my gosh,
let
yeah.
alone teenagers. So this whole idea of shaping who they are in this very developmental stage of their
Right.
life, throughout childhood and their teenage years, is incredibly important for them to understand that their value is not tied to their follower count on social media
Right.
or the number of likes they get.
Right.
I was taking a group of students to a youth camp one year, and one of my boys, it was in the van, he took a picture. He was like, I'm gonna post this on Instagram. He said, I might delete it later. And I said, why would you delete it? He's like, well, if I don't get enough likes.
Wow.
And I'm like, I said, are you kidding me? He said, yeah, if I don't get enough likes, I'll just take it
So
off.
that motivation.
Wow.
And
That's
what's enough?
And I told him, I said, listen, you got to understand, if you live by their likes, you're going to die by their criticism.
Right.
And everything is tied to their image, this fake social media
Right.
image that is not lasting.
Right. It's not approval.
It's not
Right.
They're every
Fake.
student, every person for that matter, is looking for affirmation from someplace, and they're
Right.
going to get it from someplace.
Right. Yep.
But it's whether or not they're getting it from the healthy places.
Right.
It's so important.
Well, and as
very
parents, I've had, Kasaud, I've even had parents, I'm sure you have too, of like 7, 8-year-olds come up to me and say, hey, please help me pray. My child, they're really experiencing anxiety. And, I pray with them, but then I'll stop and I'll say, okay, because I do believe God will do what he can do, but we first got to do what we can do.
Yeah.
Right.
And, I asked them 2 things. Are they on social media? And how much time do they spend on the internet? Period. And here's my answer when I say, hey, are they on social media? Oh, well, they have a phone. And I said, well, no, that's not what I asked. I didn't ask if they have a phone.
Yeah.
Are they on social media?
Yep.
And as parents, sometimes I think that a phone is social media. And I heard, I can't remember who it was say this. And they said, hey, if you hand a 10-year-old a gun and they shoot somebody, is it their fault? Yes. Is it more your fault for handing a 10-year-old a gun and when they have no idea the effects and how to use it as a parent?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I see us doing this as parents to young kids even, handing them this object, this device,
Yep.
loaded
This loaded
with
gun.
anything
Yeah.
they want to find. And then we get upset if they look at something they shouldn't, or if they get involved in something they shouldn't. How do we get upset with them when we're the adult here?
Yep.
And so, and I've asked parents, and have you ever had a conversation maybe with a parent and I've said, hey, well, yeah, just because they don't have a phone, they have a phone doesn't mean they need social media.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, they would freak out.
Yeah.
That one gets me. I'm just going to say that. Parents, man, I hope my kid freaks out or I'm really not doing a good job.
That's right.
Have you had
Yeah.
any experience with even younger ages with that?
So yeah, I've actually seen kids especially from my own kids, as young Elizabeth, she has had this bout where she's just gotten really anxious and stuff, and she just turned 4 back in May, and the problem is making sure you recognize it and see what's going on, because when they're that young, it could either be a growth spurt or just a random tantrum. But like what we noticed is she started getting more touchy, like more whining. Hold me, daddy. I want you to hold me. Well, what's going on? Or I'm scared, or I'm upset, or something like that. And so the thing is, when you're recognizing that, understand, hey, this is something that's out of the norm. What do we need to do? Where do we need to cut back on? So one
what
day,
did you do when you recognized it?
I start looking at like a crazy person more in depth. What is she watching? And so like the movies I would come home Sarah and watching, and I was like, all right, what is this, Julia? Well, this is The Descendants. Okay, well let's cut that off because I don't know that that's something she needs to watch. Or what are you listening to? What songs are you wanting to hear? Or what are we doing? A lot of
Right.
it is us. So like you may not know it, but kids can hear you argue, and when they hear you argue, whatever you're arguing about, that sits with them. And so when this whole COVID thing first started, I was watching the news, I was talking to Julie, I was getting frustrated about stuff, and then she goes, you need to stop talking about this when Elizabeth is around because she's watching you and she's hiding under the table now.
Wow.
And I wasn't even loud.
Wow.
And so I'm like, oh my goodness, let me step back. And so even in that, like when you're watching the news, if you're
Right.
watching it on YouTube or if you're watching it loud, be cognizant of where your kids are, because
That's
they see
great.
that too.
Right.
And the news isn't going to filter anything. I mean, they're just going to say what they're going to say. And then you're going to be left with having to come back and kind of try to fix that and rebuild that.
Right. Well, and you just said something I think is so important. So my 13-year-old does not have social media. She can't get on anything. She begs me all the time for Pinterest because she likes to cook, and all my friends have it. I'm like, great, that's wonderful. That does not affect who we are in this house. So,
right.
yes, you will be the weird one. That's
Yeah.
cool. I'm good with that. But I even have to watch myself, look and how do we respond when we're scrolling through? Does she hear me say something? Does she hear, is that important to me? Because if that becomes so important to me, but I'm telling her no,
Right.
what is she seeing in
That's
me?
right.
Is that authentic? And so, in our house, we try to use social media to promote good things, and all that stuff, but we're very careful not to make a big deal about it. I don't know how many likes. Like she asked me that one time, Mom, how many likes did the picture get? I said, I don't know. You don't know? No, I don't know. I don't care. Like,
Yep.
you know what I mean? That's not important to me. And so I think we have to be, what you said, Kasaud, is so important that even if we're not allowing them, if we're putting boundaries around them, they're still listening to us.
Yep.
So that's all. That's heavy, parents.
Yeah. And we
It
also
is.
need to realize that God has not called us to be their friends.
Oh,
He's called us to be their
amen.
parents.
Yep.
Yes.
And that means
somebody beep your horn right now that's driving down the road.
that means making them mad and being okay with that.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
It was
Absolutely.
It was funny. I was talking to somebody today, and we were talking about like the importance of parents. It's like we're talking about 10 Commandments, and so when it says honor your mother and father, and it's like mom and dad, they are that covering for kids, and so the
Yeah.
second kids step out from under that covering, they get afraid. They're in that danger zone. And so he was saying that, hey, when my kids started like talking back to us, getting really disrespectful and stuff, we made him sleep outside of his room, locked it up, and said, hey, you're gonna have to sleep in the hallway. But the hallway was terrifying. The kid was afraid. And so I said all that to say, when we're not being that covering for our kids,
Yeah.
we are actively removing that protection for them.
Oh, that's
so when
true.
they step out and they're disrespectful and they get the consequence or whatnot, it's the exact reverse. If we're not going to be watching what they're watching or listening to what they're listening to, being cognizant of us, we're removing that protection from them.
That's
right.
true. That's true. And you think you're doing a good thing as a parent, you're harming your child.
Yes.
And none of us want to do that. None of us have that motive to do that. Wow, so much good information on just being aware of what our children are intaking. But so I kind of want to shift now to talking about isolation and something we're all experiencing right now in some form. We're all experiencing, hey, you got to step back. You got to, when you're in the same room, you got to be far apart. You got to be covered up. You got to, all these things that are just to keep us safe. I'm using quotation marks at the moment. However, yes, they're trying to keep us physically safe, but the effects it's having on our society, mentally, emotionally, socially, I wonder how long these effects are going to even last. And, as parents, sometimes maybe our children, our teenagers don't even know how to put it into words, what they're feeling when it comes to this isolated feeling. Because I know as a teenager, you already feel lonely.
Right.
You already feel like you don't have anybody. But now, even the people they did have, they're being distanced from.
Right.
I even think of how grandparents, the role they play in children's lives, and for a long time, and even now, maybe some of the grandparents may still have to be distanced because of health concerns. And wow, what an effect and an impact that's really going to make. But isolation, it's huge right now. And as parents, we need to learn to kind of spot that in our kids and be aware of it. But I just want to run down some studies that I was reading through of what happens to a child. So this is a child socially. When a child is socially isolated, their body starts to perceive that situation as a threat. So they start to think they're in danger when they're isolated, because a child was meant to be nurtured. I know if anybody's heard that statistic that an adult may need 20 hugs a day, a child physically needs like 50 plus hugs a day or touches.
Yep.
Well, now touching's thrown out the window, because we don't even know if we can be in the same room with people. I don't know if we're really realizing that impact that it's having, especially on children. And so their brain starts releasing all these stress hormones. They're trying to protect themselves from danger in this isolated state. Wow. But their brain was not meant, or their body even wasn't meant to constantly have to release this hormone. It was meant to feel that for a moment and then be nurtured again and know they're not alone. I mean, you see it in an infant. Kasaud, you guys just had a baby not too many months ago. They cry when they're little because they just want to be held.
Yep.
Well,
I do too.
yeah, I was going to say.
I cry when I just want to be held.
Okay, Steve.
That never really stops. They just want to be close. You just, I don't know if any of you guys out there have kids that they don't want to sit next to you. They just want to sit on top of you. It doesn't matter how old they are. They just want to be on top of you, right? They're touchy.
1,000% true.
Right.
My 9-year-old is a monster.
He is tall. I thought he was 12.
And yes, exactly. When people stop him at church, hey, make sure you're wearing a mask. He's like, I'm going to kids' church. And I'm like, oh my God. So he's like, he comes in and he always wants to be. He sits on the couch. He's right next to you. He's constantly touching or laying on you or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and that's a need. That's a basic need.
Yep.
And when they feel isolated, they don't even realize that their body's just through this stressor, going through this, oh my goodness, I got to protect myself. And some investigators found that young people were as much as 3 times more likely to develop depression in the future, not just right now, due to social isolation. And with the impact of loneliness on mental health lasting up to 9 years later. And there's many reports that children that were maybe abandoned or in other countries in orphanages and they weren't touched. If you go back and read what all the years later they were going through healing and all of these things. And wow, what are our kids going through right now, Steve, socially? Yeah. Isolated.
Yeah.
And that sounds like such a word. And that doesn't mean, you were talking earlier about, that doesn't mean my kids are bored.
That's
Mom,
right.
I'm bored.
Absolutely.
That's not what we're talking about here.
Right. And I'm sure we've all had these moments where we've been sitting there and we've been going through a season in our lives where even when we're in a room full of other people, we feel like we're by ourselves.
Absolutely.
Imagine feeling like that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
What our students are going through.
Yes.
Now, I'm not talking about solitude. Everybody, every person, every kid, every child, every teenager, every adult needs
Right.
some moments of solitude. If you're a parent, you only find that when you're going to the restroom, you know? If
Not
you're
if you
lucky.
have a 2-year-old
lucky.
and he can undo locks.
If there's a crack under the door, fingers are reaching over the door. Hey, what are you doing in there?
Yeah.
Can I come in there with
my
you?
Goodness, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So we all
True.
need those solitude moments, but that's different than isolation. Because
Absolutely.
isolation it feels like it's not your choice.
Yep.
Solitude is your choice.
Oh, that's great.
Isolation feels like you don't
You're
have
trapped.
a choice
You
and
don't-
you're trapped.
Yep.
Wow.
So for our kids that are our kids and our teenagers who are going back to school, that they're either going all the way back to school or they're in the hybrid model or whatever that looks like, those students that already feel isolated, they're going into a school where there's less kids now.
Right.
There's less students.
Yes.
They're distanced from everybody else around them. But not only that, they are now, if they are remote learning, they're not around any students at all. They're by themselves at home, just kind of hanging out.
Right.
You know, even their parents are gone at work all day, so they're not even getting any actual interaction with parents.
And I'm sure parents feel guilt about that.
That's
but
right.
what
Oh,
do
yeah.
you even do?
That's right. It's so hard because of the
Yeah.
season that we're in to navigate
Absolutely.
that. But there are things that we need to look out for as parents, as adults,
Yeah.
whenever we see a teenager who's, and sometimes I hate to say it,
Yeah.
but parents, we have a tendency to focus on the immediate need, not the long-term need.
So true.
So we look at, well, I need to make sure that I'm working, that dinner's on the
can't
table.
lose my job right now.
Can't lose my job. We got to pay bills.
I got to clean this house.
That's right. We've got to
not
do, but we need to take a
Absolutely.
minute and just invest in our kids,
Yep,
in our
and open our
children.
eyes to
That's
them.
right. So sometimes other people see it,
True.
and when they come to us as parents, we're like, "No, you're crazy. My kid's not. My
So
kid's
what do you
not
look
depressed."
for? What would be signs of maybe even depression? Because, you could see a child that's smiling and
Think everything's
That's
okay.
right.
yeah.
One of the biggest ones is difficulty falling asleep or sleeping too much. And I know that's
For a
one extreme or
teenager.
the other.
Yeah.
Like my
Yeah.
daughter will sleep till noon and not even
yes.
not even care.
Absolutely.
But it's sleeping too much
Maybe a
they
big
don't.
change
That's
or
right. A big change in appetite. Whether they're not eating or they are indeed eating too much. Difficulty like organization. Now I know that's a stretch for every student.
I feel like you're
child.
calling me out right now.
I'm not.
Not
I
enough
promise.
sleep,
Because if
eating too much, not organized. Man, no, I'm kidding.
as I was reading through my list, as I was compiling it, I'm going, "Am I depressed right now?"
Yes.
Like I feel
Let's
this.
all examine ourselves.
But
Put down the
we're all
cheeseburger.
depressed.
but you can see if they don't. Parents should know we should know our children.
Yes.
Yes.
And if they don't have joy and they can't find joy, even in the little things, even doing something fun as a family, if you see that, then it deserves a
Red
talk.
flag.
Yeah.
It's worth the 30 seconds of embarrassment that you might
Absolutely.
have saying an uncomfortable conversation with your
Yeah.
kid for their life to be radically
Absolutely.
changed.
Well, and I think you said joy. And I think how many times I just pray, God, help me to recognize the moment and let our house be filled with laughter.
Yeah,
Because, you want the number one medicine? Laughter.
Yep.
that's right.
Everything.
That's
Right.
laughter is like a medicine.
Yep.
And, fill your home with laughter. But like you were saying, if we're so busy doing this and then doing this and doing
Right.
this, we ourselves sometimes as adults and parents don't even take the time to step back and be like, can we just laugh at where we are right
That's
now?
right.
Like,
That's right.
if we don't laugh, we're going to go
Yes,
crazy. So
that's
can
right.
we laugh that we have to wear goggles and masks and boots and, can we just laugh even though it's not funny, but
Right.
it is,
That's right. Having
You
a
have to.
random Wednesday night dance party.
Oh yes, the best.
Just turn on some music and just
Dance.
go. Find you just have fun
Silly.
for a minute. 5
Yep.
minutes of fun can erase a stress of a day.
Absolutely. And how much more even for a child to see their parent
Having fun.
let go in this stressful time
Yep.
and have fun. Because parents, we are teaching our children how to react
That's right.
to the stressful moments or to the changing times. And so they're watching us. And sometimes they're not listening, but they're always watching.
And the downside of all of this is when it gets really serious, is that students and children will find a way to relieve stress if we don't give them one.
Yep.
Wow. Talk about that. What does that
So
look like?
Here's the ultimate thing is where they feel just a full lack of hopelessness. and that they have no hope, they have no future, they have no desire to live anymore. So then all of a sudden suicidal thoughts start creeping up. Most of the time it doesn't start there. It starts with hurting yourself, with self-harm, self-mutilation, things like that. So, in the summer, if you see that your kid is wearing long sleeve T-shirts in 95-degree weather,
red flag.
It's a red flag. You need to be mindful. I'm not going to say that you need to check your kid's body every single night before they go to bed, but be mindful. Look up stuff. Look up stuff. How to, again, the internet is not a bad place.
Right.
Look up for red flags, for signs, because your kid may be responding to one way completely different than how my kid responds to stuff.
So it's going to come out in some way.
Absolutely.
It may come out just through an attitude, but it may come out in a different way that we don't see it.
And we as parents cannot be embarrassed or ashamed that our kids are going through stuff.
No.
We need to seek out help, whether it's through a local church, a help. Therapy is not a bad thing.
No, it's great.
I think that comes with some negative stigmatism that that is just, this is horrible. This is horrible. I can't believe that I'm letting my kid go through therapy. No, this is potentially saving your kid's life.
Yeah.
And that's worth it,
Absolutely.
that they don't carry this into their 20s. Then they get into a relationship that they should never belong in.
And they have kids.
And then they have kids, and then it carries over. And because that stuff transfers.
It does.
It does.
It does. And think about this. I mean, no other generation has went through this.
That's right.
And so as adults, we're like in shock. Can you imagine a teenager and a child that their brain wasn't even meant to try to compute all of this? And so they're going to need to process it. And, I think it's such a great time to be strategic in placing other people in your child's life.
Yep.
Yes, hopefully keeping the door open where your child will talk to you. But there will be some times where they want to talk to somebody else. Parents, that's our role, is to put them in a place that the people they go to and influence them will influence them in the right way.
That's right.
For us, for our family, that has been the key of the local church. Having people that I know will influence my children when they don't want to listen to me, but will tell them the right way to go, that is huge. And I think the key as parents is you can't start bringing your child to church as a teenager.
Right.
Start when they're kids.
And then say, well, they're supposed to just have all these relationships that are, in the church and Christian and good influences. No, teenagers don't just start trusting you immediately.
Right. Yep.
But over time, if they, as a child, have grown up around some influences, and it makes it so much easier for you as a parent. That doesn't. Hey, if you haven't had your children in church, it's not too late. Let me just tell you that it is never too late. Get them in there. Get some great connections. But parents, when we don't realize it, when our children are 2, 3, and 4, and we think they don't, it's not going to affect them yet.
Oh, it does.
Oh, it affects them.
It does.
It affects them greatly. They need to be around good influences, godly influences. And we spoke about therapy. I've been to therapy. We've had our daughter in therapy before. We've had all kinds of. We're big supporters. I will say this: make sure it's Christian.
Yes.
Because right now, just make sure it's Christian. Yes. Now more than ever before. So.
Pastor Kim.
Yep.
To the whole isolation thing, especially when they're young, you see it. You see it, and it tears your heart up when they're 3 and 4, and you become more like, you recognize more about families that got multiple kids, and when you're a family that just has an infant and a toddler, and that toddler loves to play.
Yep.
And so I can't count on my fingers enough the amount of times that we've come home and Elizabeth looks outside and she sees all these other kids playing that are in one big family. And she sits on the porch looking at them. Hey, I want to play. I'm sorry, baby, you can't. And it's like, that's like one of the most like gut wrenching things. Like I remember I told Julie, I said, this is killing me right now because I know she wants to play with other kids, but she can't because we have to social distance. She doesn't understand it. And so she's sitting there staring at them.
She doesn't know they're all brothers and sisters playing.
These kids some of these kids that were by themselves, I would see them take their toys with them outside, sit down on the ground, look at the kids playing, and play with their toys while looking at the kids. As if it's like, oh, we're all playing together, right?
Oh, my goodness.
These are not teenagers.
Wow.
That's right. And community is so important.
Oh,
Even go back to the beginning.
Yep.
God said, let us create man in whose image? Our image.
Yeah.
God already has
his own community
built in with that. And he said that it's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for us to be alone. It's not good for us to be isolated.
Right.
You know, you were talking about how important it is to get kids in a local church, you know, and get our children in a local church and everything like that.
Right.
But we also can't rely as parents
Absolutely.
solely on the church to do everything.
No.
We've outsourced a lot in our culture.
We
We've
have.
outsourced education. We send our kids to school. We send our kids to private school. Some of us homeschool. You know, that's everybody's choice. I'm
Yep.
not knocking that. I love all of it.
Yeah.
Get a good education for your kid.
Right.
That's up to you to decide. That's nobody else's decision.
Right.
But we've also outsourced our entertainment. You know, and I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure many other parents are.
No,
Yep.
But we go to a restaurant.
Here, let me have a peaceful dinner. Watch this.
Hey, here, watch this iPad, watch this phone,
Yeah.
watch this YouTube channel.
Yep.
Your Kindle.
You know, just be quiet. Don't embarrass us.
Yep.
Because we want to put this image on. So we've outsourced our entertainment, we've outsourced our education, but we've also outsourced our Christian education
Right.
by expecting the church to disciple our kids when it's us as parents.
Absolutely.
And it's our responsibility
Yep.
to pour into our kids and
Yes.
share the goodness of God
Yep.
into them, so that way then they can carry that. And the church is here to partner,
Absolutely.
not replace.
So what does
do
that
it.
look
Yeah.
like? Because, you know, some people may be thinking, well, I don't have time to do a, 10, 20-minute Bible study every night with my kids, and I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm trying to figure it out myself. But what if, Kasaud, what did you see maybe growing up that a parent did, or in your home, or as a child, that maybe nobody sat there and taught you for 10 minutes on this, this, and this, and this, but that influenced you in a Christian education way? Because obviously something influenced you for you
Working
to
in
want to
ministry.
do this with your life, right?
So I think my story is kind of similar to you guys around the table. I'm a pastor's kid. I'm a
Yeah.
pastor's grandkid. I'm a pastor's great grandkid. I'm a bishop's great grandkid. I mean, it's just all in my family.
Whoa.
But what
Bishops.
marked me was I saw my dad studying at his desk, and I guess it was the Lord, because his desk was in my room. We had a trailer.
Oh,
he had
that's
this little
cool.
white
That's
desk.
awesome.
He had a
That's
little,
very
those
cool.
little tin aluminum chairs, the
Yep.
ones that folded up
Yeah.
extremely uncomfortable, which I had to sit on them in church sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but I would see him praying. I would wake up, he'd be in there praying.
So you heard
I'd
him
go
pray.
to bed, he'd be over there praying. When he would fast, I'd see him on his knees at the desk praying. I took his Bible, it's giant Bible, it's got all kinds of chicken scratch all over it. But it's like, I'm like, man, this was my dad's. This is what he did. This is what he was writing in when I was laying in my bed watching him at night,
That's cool.
trying not to wake me up. And so that's where my marking came from. I mean, I had to sit in the pulpit with my grandmother.
Right.
So when she was at church, even when I was visiting her, she had all of her Bibles laid at the foot of her bed.
Yeah.
And she would lay down at the foot of her bed. This is all day long. Like, I am not exaggerating. And she would have her Bible just opened up, reading them. She spent more time reading and praying than she did watching TV.
Yeah.
And then she had this giant rainbow-colored, kind of like, it was like a robe. It reminded me of Joseph's coat of many colors when
Yeah.
I saw it. And I knew that when she had that out on her recliner, she was on her knees praying.
Wow.
And so that's what happened.
Even as a parent, just teaching your kids how to pray.
Right.
Yeah.
By praying with them.
Yeah.
By
right.
praying, don't underestimate the value of a nightly family prayer.
Mm-hmm.
No big, long, drawn out thing, and just reading the Bible together. And I think what you said, Kasaud, was you just saw it daily.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, we're in trouble, let's pull out the Bible, family.
right.
You
That's
know what I
right.
mean?
Oh,
And there's
yeah.
just discipleship is just going with. Come with me. Watch what I'm doing here.
And it may seem difficult, especially for kids that are 5th grade and younger.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that I have found that you do this and it makes it real to them is you find a reason to relate things back to the Bible. So, like, if they're afraid of something,
Yes.
Jesus isn't actually afraid of this. Jesus protects us from this.
Right.
That's
and then
awesome.
what you also do too, because when I was younger, and you read about Noah and Noah's Ark, and you read about Jesus walking on water and the cross and all stuff like that, to me, it was painted as this super plain vanilla picture. But
Why'd you have to say vanilla?
right.
just
Well,
kidding.
it's just vanilla. I love vanilla. So, but no, so that's the way it was painted out to me. But when I got older and I started reading and stuff like that, like, you see kids love Avengers and they love superheroes and stuff. But I keep telling people the Bible has the same stories in it.
Right.
Elijah called down fire from heaven.
That's right.
That's a big deal. That's huge. I mean, people touch Elisha's bones and a dead guy came back to life. And so
That
like
is
you've got these
superhero
stories
status
like
right there.
teleportations in the Bible. Philip got teleported.
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you got all these
So you
stories
make
in the
them
Bible.
fun for your kids to
Exactly.
understand. You
And
think that's cool. This is real.
And you don't just be like, you don't
That's
say,
right.
oh yeah, I just walked on water. You go, no, let's go look in the bathtub. Okay, Jesus walked on this. You see how my hand is sinking? Can you believe that? Oh my
That's
goodness.
awesome.
And the thing is, as parents, we have to first know
Yes.
what the
very
Bible
good.
says
Yes.
before we can
Before
tell
we
our
can
kids about
make it fun
That's
for
right.
them. And I
Absolutely.
think that's huge. So, man, so much good content in this. And we may make a second edition because I feel like there's so much more that we can cover. And then also, gosh, in a month, our kids are going to be back in school. So, you know, I'd love to hear from you guys that are listening. If there's questions you have, things you're facing with your students, they're going to let you know how to send us in questions at the end of this. But how can we help you guys? But I want to end with this. So I'll end with Pastor Steve. As a parent, how important am I in this season in framing how my kids are going to deal with this mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? How important am I? Like, is it, well, you know what? We're just going to all get through it together and we just kind of trudge through this thing? Or what role? Why is my role important in this season? Now more than ever before, probably.
I would initially say that, and I would remind everybody that God is a God of order. He's not a God of confusion. He's not a God of chaos.
Right.
So if he's a God of order, then that means you didn't just happen to parent
So
to be
true.
the parent of those kids.
Yep.
Whether you are their biological parent or whether you are their adoptive parent or you're the
Yes.
grandparent who's stepping in to help raise those kids.
Absolutely.
Whatever your circumstance is, we've got to understand that the Bible says that the steps of a righteous man are ordered.
Yes.
So our steps are ordered,
Yep.
which means God called you to this specific case. And my list of priorities is I am first a Christian, then I'm a husband, and then I'm a father,
Yes.
and then I'm a pastor.
Absolutely.
You know, that's my order. My family is my first ministry. So I can't be too busy not to love my family.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that the tool of the enemy is that he gives us this fake sense of busyness, that I'm too busy to spend time
Distracting.
with my family. I'm too busy to spend 10 minutes. Yet we will watch Netflix and so long that it'll
For
come up and
hours.
say, "Are you still watching?"
Yes.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And it's like, well, yeah, I'm still watching. Why are you judging me, Netflix? You know?
Right? Continue.
But then we're like, well, I don't have an extra 10 minutes
yeah.
to spend with my kids and pray.
And then it shows you how much time you've spent on your phone.
That's right. That's
each day
right.
At the end of the week,
That's
and you're
right.
like, I did have time.
That's right. We have more time than what we think.
Absolutely.
We can probably deal with 15 minutes less sleep even if we
Oh,
need
yeah.
to, and just spend time and invest. We got to realize that the fruit that we are investing in, we may not see for years. You know, we live in a very right now culture.
Yeah. Yep.
Right now, I want to see the return on my investment right now, right now, right now, right now. But you know, my view of student ministry is my goal isn't to raise good teenagers. My goal is to raise good adults.
Absolutely.
So we want to give them the gifts and the talents and the training and the skills and all that stuff that they need so that they can serve God for the rest of their life.
Absolutely.
A byproduct of that is them being great teenagers right now.
Yep.
So the same way with parenting, you know, I may not see the return on my investment, but if I do everything that I can do,
Right.
that God has called me to do as a parent, then I'm going to see amazing fruit happen in the lives of my kids, even though it's their choice.
Absolutely.
And I will say this, that if your kid comes to you with a problem, it doesn't matter what that problem is, please, 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 please don't blow up.
Yeah.
Because the
or make
moment-
light of it.
That's right. The moment you do one of those two things, that your child is not going to come to you
Anything
in the
else?
future
That's true.
openly. And
Yeah.
if we want that, you know, I remember sitting at a restaurant, and Caleb was probably 4 or 5 years old, and which means Michaela was about 9 or 10. We're sitting there, and Caleb said, "Is blank a bad word?" and just says it at the table. Michaela looked like she was watching like an intense tennis match, bouncing her head.
She's like, "What's he
back and
gonna do?
forth
What's he gonna
between
do?"
me and Beth, and we were like, "Well, buddy, that is a bad word. That's something that we don't say. We didn't say." Don't ever say that
Right.
word
Well,
again.
yeah, how
you
did he know
Because
what
he
it
didn't
meant?
know.
No.
He didn't know. Yeah, Beth has worked in childcare for years.
Yes.
And she went to a training. She said this one thing, and then I'll be quiet. But she said, you know, if a kid doesn't know how to do math, we teach them.
Yep.
If a kid doesn't know how to ride his bike, we teach them.
Right.
If a kid doesn't know how to read or write, we teach them. But if a kid doesn't know how to behave, we punish.
Right.
What if we went to teach. As quickly
Absolutely.
as we went to punish?
Absolutely.
And actually invest in our children.
That's awesome. That's great. Wow. So I want to leave you guys with this. And it was kind of what Pastor Steve said, is as a parent, be encouraged. I know it's easy to seem overwhelmed because no one has answers for us now. There's no rule book. Nope. There's no directions for the season that you're parenting in. But I want you to be encouraged that God has you here on purpose. He knew the generation that was going to be on earth when all this was going to happen. He knew your children were going to be teenagers or infants or toddlers when all this was happening, and he chose them, and then he trusts us with them.
Right.
He chose us to go through this season, and he chose us for this moment in time. For such a time as this, he chose us. I don't know what he thinks we're so great that we can handle all this for, but he knew none of this has caught him by surprise. Nope. And he's equipped you. You are anointed for this. You are chosen for this. Rely on God.
Yeah.
It's moments like this that have to remind us that we don't know how to do it, but we know the one who knows everything. Yep. And God will give you strength. He'll give you wisdom. Your child may come to you and facing something that you have no idea what to say. Take a moment and pray. Go to the Bible. God has all the answers we need in this season. And so I just want to encourage you. You're doing a great job, Mom, Dad,
Yes,
teachers. I want to encourage you. God chose you to teach in a year like none before. What a gift you've been handed, an opportunity and a moment to impact like never before. So I want to say a prayer. Actually, I'm going to ask Pastor Steve to pray for you guys. And hey, tune in and please send us any questions, anything extra you want to know about dealing with your students during this season. And we will definitely get back with you and probably create a part 2 to this. So just keep listening. All right, Pastor Steve, you care to close us in prayer?
Absolutely. God, we are so grateful for your grace and your touch and your mercy. Your mercy is so abundant to us, Lord. It's free. We don't have to do anything to receive it, God, and we're so grateful for that. It never ends. It will never end. And God, we pray today, Lord, for every listener and even those that might not hear it initially, but somewhere down the future, that it's passed on, that somebody would be encouraged by your word, that your word has proceeded through today, that we were able to share some nuggets of wisdom, God, that might help just a little bit. And I pray, God, that you would send your Holy Spirit for us to guide and lead us, that even when we have bad days, even when we struggle, that we know and we can rest assured that you are there with us. Lord, I pray for encouragement. I pray for a restoration of joy. God, I pray for restoration of families right now. Yes, Lord, I believe that there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of stuff just going on right now. But in Jesus' name, I believe for restoration. I believe families are going to be put back together through these next few weeks and even these next few months, God, Lord. And we speak these things that they're not as if they were. Yes. And we believe for these things. And God, we give you all the glory. We give you the honor. We give you the praise because we are expecting big things, God. And we believe that expectancy is the breeding ground for miracles. So we worship you, God, and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Awesome. And hey, if you want more information about getting your children or students connected to an awesome body of Christ and believers, go to citygate.tv. Look up all of our kids and youth teen ministries, and we would be happy to partner with you guys. Love you so much. Thank you. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Leftovers. Listen, make sure you subscribe to the Leftovers podcast and share it with all your friends on social media. That way you never miss your leftovers. Catch you next time. Bye.